Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hi guys! So today I will be sharing with you my experiences of living in America versus Canada. Honestly, we can be even more specific because America is huge with over 50 states and I only lived in one state. So my experience as an American woman is from one state, the state of Georgia in the south. The same thing can be said about Canada because Canada is huge and my experience is only from one of its provinces. And my experience is only from Ontario. So instead of comparing America versus Canada, we will be comparing Toronto versus Georgia. And more specifically, Toronto versus the city that I was from in Georgia. So in Georgia, I lived in a very small city where I was literally the only Niqabi there. The other thing to note is that my experience as a Niqabi in Georgia was only for 1 year. Because my entire life, I never wore the hijab or the niqab, and I only wore it for 1 year in Georgia before I got married and moved to Canada. So in Canada, I have been living here for like about 5 years. In America, I lived for like more than 20 years. And out of those 20 years, I only wore the niqab for like 1 year. Okay, that's enough for the background. Let's get right into it. Number one, the stairs. In terms of stairs, I was stared down so much more in America. People would look at me all sorts of ways. I remember this one incident where this one person was looking at me. So I just started to like look at him. And he's staring at me, I stared at him. He stared at me, I stared at him. I'm like, you know, just doing a staring contest over here to see who's gonna budge first. And the person was just like straight up, just keeps looking. And I'm just like, what is it, man? What is it? So then after that, every time somebody stared at me and they wouldn't look away, I'd just start waving at them. I'd just be like, and eventually they'll be like so weirded out and they will realize how awkward they're being and they'll stop staring. It's rude to stare, guys. It's so rude. I know you're curious. I know that this is not something you've ever witnessed in your entire life before, but that doesn't mean you just keep on staring at them. Like, it's rude. Don't do it. Number two, rude comments. Again, Canada wins because in America, people would say all sorts of rude things to me. The stares in terms of Canada is not that common because literally, guys, there are so many Niqabis around me. There are so many Niqabis in the Toronto community that it's a no big deal for people. So in Canada, people don't really stare that much because there are so many Niqabis around them, so many hijabis, so many Muslim women all over Canada, especially in Ontario and Toronto. Like, it's a vast majority of Muslims here, huge Muslim community, and because of that, when I step outside, I don't notice people staring as much versus in America. I don't feel as awkward when I step outside of the house either. People treat me completely normal. They don't look. I'm sure people are still curious because this is not a common occurrence, but it's definitely more common in Toronto than it is in Georgia. Number two, racial slurs or just rude comments in general. Again, Canada wins. I remember this one incident in Georgia where it was my first day of wearing the niqab and the abaya. And I stepped out of the car and this dude's like, hey, yo, you got a bomb under there? And I was like, yeah, I do. You want me to come blow it up in your truck? And the dude got so like scared, as he should. And his wife or girlfriend like tapped him like, what are you doing? Like, stop being dumb. That happened the very first day I wore this. And he probably thought I'm just this little damsel that just can't say that doesn't speak any English and whatever not. But no, boy, you don't come after me. You do not get to say anything to me, okay? I will clap back. I will not sit there and let you be rude to my face and say rude things to me, racially rude things to me, and I'm just gonna sit here and smile and be like, okay, no. There was one time, I had to pray in public and I started praying and this lady sitting there was like, oh my god, what is she doing? Oh my god, what is she doing? This lady's freaking out, and then there's another lady sitting there. She's like, relax, she's just praying, I think. There was this one incident where I was working with the niqab, of course, and I was trying to talk to the customer and the customer is like staring at me and he's like, eventually he speaks and he's like, I don't understand you. Can you take it off and talk to me? And I'm just like, sir, you do not have to yell at me. And then no, I cannot take it off. And I just like walked away from that customer because no, the customer is not always right, okay? No, thank you. Luckily, my manager agreed with me that that was extremely rude behavior and he shouldn't have said that to me. Go, manager. I have an endless amount of incidents that took place in Georgia. Being the only Niqabi in my little town, city, it was immensely difficult. And to be honest, nothing's changed much because I go and visit my family often, and whenever I go back, I still experience the same behavior. I see people staring at me non-stop. I hear people saying rude things to me. It's still going on there. Like, I don't know when people will have an open mind about these things and realize that not everyone is going to act and behave and dress the same way as they are. Maybe one day my town will awaken and open its mind. So now in Canada, Toronto, that's where I initially moved to, and nothing. And I mean nothing, guys. In the 5 years of me living here, not a single incident that I can tell you that happened that made me question myself, that made me question my niqab, that made me question my hijab. Nothing, guys. Even if people are thinking of it in Canada, they're not openly verbal about it. They're not telling these things to my face. There's no incident that I witnessed. In fact, I've noticed the opposite, that people will go out of their way to accommodate for me even though I'm not asking for it. I have noticed the non-Muslims in Canada, the boys, the men will lower their gaze as they're talking to me, and I just find that like so mind-blowing. I know that they're still curious. I still get people staring at me, but people have actually gone out of their way to ask me questions about it. I feel more accepted in this society of Canada. Like, it's just so welcoming and open. So yes, they're right what they say. Canadians are so nice. They're so nice. And this is not me putting Americans down in any way. I myself am an American, guys. I grew up in America. I was raised in America. I spent my entire life in America. I am very much American. But man, Canadians are so welcoming. So welcoming. But here is a little positive story that that happened to me the last time I went to Georgia. I was at the airport and I was about to order something, some food and whatever, and I asked the lady to get it, and she's like, oh, I just wanted to let you know that this has pork in it. And that was really sweet. So no, not everyone is out to get me in America. It's just majority of the times my experience as a Niqabi in America was negative, and majority of the time in Canada it was positive. So that's what I'm comparing. I hope that makes sense. Next thing is finding Muslim friendly hijabs and niqab shops or abaya shops. You guys, when I initially became a Niqabi, I didn't have an abaya. My teacher actually gifted me one, and my sister gifted me one, so I had 2 abayas to my name, and I would just wear those over and over and over and over and over again. And I was trying to look for some abaya friendly shops, but I couldn't find much. There are a few, and they're ridiculously expensive in Toronto. Again, so many options. They're still expensive though, but so many options, so many local Muslim shops. Next thing is finding halal food. Canada, hands down, Toronto, you win. Toronto wins in this regard. Toronto is the most diverse country. Toronto is not a country, Sidra. Oh my goodness. It should be. Toronto is the most diverse city in the world. There's so many halal options. It just keeps popping up, guys. I have eaten so much halal food, outside halal food in these 5 years, and they still keep coming up with new halal restaurants. We have halal Mexican, halal Chinese, halal, you name it, they got it. Oh my god, I love the food scene. I never knew I was a foodie until I moved to Toronto. Georgia, man, the town that I lived in, the closest halal restaurant to us was like about 45 to 50 minutes away. That's so sad. That's so sad. Like almost an hour away from us. I think when I was living there, there was only one hand slaughter chicken butcher place. So it was a mission to find proper halal food in Georgia. So there you have it, guys. Canada wins for me. I absolutely love Canada. I will always be an American in heart, but like, as far as living somewhere, I would always want to live in Canada. The only things I miss about America is my family, because my family is still there. My friends from high school, from college, from madrasa, I really miss them. My dad's grave is in Georgia, so I will always have a connection with Georgia. I will always keep going back to visit. But in terms of living, this is my home place. Canada is it. And specifically, Toronto, Ontario, because I think in Quebec things are wild for Niqabis and hijabis. Like Quebec, I've heard some scary things about Quebec. So I wouldn't say all of Canada is good and all of America is bad. I wouldn't say that. I think it just depends on which area you're living. the type of community you have around you. So obviously if in America you're living in a Muslim majority community, then you're going to have these amenities available for you. If you live in a city like I did, which was not a Muslim majority city, then life was a tad bit difficult for me once I transitioned into practicing my faith more. When I didn't look like a Muslim, when I didn't practice like a Muslim, when I didn't associate myself with Islam, life was breezy. I loved living there. Everything was jolly for me. There were no racial slurs. There was nothing to it. But as soon as I was visibly and outwardly Muslim, that's when all the issues started popping up. To be completely honest with you guys, even though I am a minority and I am brown and I look brown, but when I didn't visibly look like a Muslim, I never knew what racism was because I never experienced that. So yeah guys, this is my experience as a Niqabi living in Canada, living in America. And as a non-Muslim, how big is the Muslim community where you live? Let me know in the comments, I'd love to know. Also guys, if you're new to my channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. If you're already subscribing to me, don't forget to hit the like button. And until next time guys, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace! Okay, bye!